Hi, I'm Christy McDonald, and here's what's coming up on One Detroit Arts and Culture. Touring the beautiful architecture at Cranbrook by Instagram. Plus, the Plowshares Theatre working on a new musical based on Detroit back in 1949. Also ahead, the virtual Detroit Jazz Festival this Labor Day weekend. And then a Michigan-made movie making box office history during quarantine. It's coming up right now on One Detroit.
Support for this program provided by W.K. Kellogg Foundation, a partner with communities where children come first. The Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929. The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Nissan Foundation, Ally, and viewers like you.
Hi there and welcome to One Detroit. I'm Christy McDonald. Thanks so much for joining me. It is all about arts and culture in Detroit and enjoying music, theater, and even movies in this COVID-19 world. Coming up on One Detroit, Kevin Adkison from Cranbrook shares the live social media tours that are connecting design buffs with architecture. Plus, the Plowshares Theatre on their new play called Hastings Street and an online concert from this summer. Also ahead, the Michigan-made movie that was a hit at drive-ins nationwide. Meet the directors of The Wretched and how they made box office history this spring. And then, the Detroit Jazz Festival is this Labor Day weekend. See how you can virtually connect. It is all coming up. But we are starting at Cranbrook and a look at the live tours on social media that give people a closer look at Eliel Saarinen's work. So for people who aren't maybe terribly familiar, give us a bigger picture of Cranbrook's really rich architectural heritage.
Cranbrook is a community since 1904 when we were a private family estate. And then around 1922 when we opened an elementary school, George and Ellen Scripps Booth built a center of art, education, and science. And they worked with predominantly the Finnish-American architect Eliel Saarinen, who immigrated to America in 1923. And he lived here at Cranbrook from 1925 until his death in 1950. And so the entire second half of his career, he spent building and developing this special place. And Saarinen really considered it to be a total work of art. And so he was not only our architect, but he designed the landscape. He designed where the buildings went, the streets. He designed the interiors. He designed the furniture. He designed the teacups and the logo. He even designed the ties that the boys wore to dinner. And so part of my role with the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research is preserving that legacy that the Booths and the Saarinens left, but then also educating the wider world about all that Cranbrook has to offer.
Now, usually you would be giving walking tours, or you would be engaging with groups who would come in and be able to show them everything on the grounds. COVID-19 changed all of that.
It did, and it changed it quite quickly. We had a large dinner celebrating our English roots, and that was canceled, and then it was just the dominoes fell and everything changed. And so I thought, everything's moving digitally. I have a phone with a camera on it. I can take the tours that are now all canceled and we can do them through the phone.
So talk to me about, it's called Live at 5. You've been on Facebook and Instagram. What are you doing and what's been the reaction from people?
So every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 5 o'clock, I go to a new corner of campus. On Facebook, we do building tours. So taking one corner of campus. On Instagram, I try and do sort of closer look at individual objects, so a real close study of one sculpture or one chair. And the reaction has been overwhelmingly positive. We're able to get into a lot more corners of campus and share a lot more stories with a lot more people. So I had about 400 people virtually on a tour of Cranbrook House.
And designed by Albert Kahn, right?
Yes, yep. So the Albert Kahn Cranbrook House, and then later in the 20th century, we have important buildings by New York architect Stephen Hull, Todd Williams and Billy Chin, Spanish architect Rafael Mineo. And those are all important projects that happened around the turn of the century that we really don't tour as much. And so I've been able to reach out to whole new corners of the architectural world who are interested in these lesser known parts of Cranbrook.
What are some of the plans now as we start looking at opening up?
Well, just yesterday, I was planning my Live at Fives through August. So I will continue doing them at least for a couple of more months. And we also at Cranbrook are taking health and wellness incredibly seriously. And so it's very unclear when both we as the staff and visitors will be comfortable standing in a group with 15 people, particularly when it comes to the 3 houses that we operate as house museums. It will be a minute before tours are resumed here at Cranbrook.
All right, Kevin, go ahead and tell people again where they can find these virtual tours and when.
Absolutely. We're the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research, and every Wednesday at 5 o'clock on the Cranbrook Center for Collections and Research Facebook page. You'll just log onto the page. We'll pop up automatically at 5 o'clock, and on Tuesday and Thursday on Instagram at Cranbrook Center. At the end of June, we'll be having a lecture live from London with Brendan Cormier, curator at the Victoria and Albert Museum, who will be talking about cars. So guests can see that on our Facebook page or our website as well.
The Plowshares Theatre is Michigan's only professional African-American theater, and earlier this summer they had an online concert to debut some of the songs from a new musical the company is working on. It's called Hastings Street, and the show is set back in 1949 when the Black Bottom neighborhood was about to be torn apart to make way for the construction of I-75. Will Glover caught up with Plowshares co-founder Gary Anderson, along with the writers John Sloan III and Kris Johnson, right before their virtual concert.
You guys are creating a play and a virtual concert around Hastings Street, which has a lot to do with the highways that were built during urban renewal and the neighborhoods like Black Bottom that were destroyed in the process. So, Gary, we'll start with you. Was this something that was in the works already before, the world kind of got put on pause and also exploded at the same time? Or was this something that was sparked by everything that's going on?
Yeah, so this has been in the works for almost a year now. And we're at a point now where we have a full script, we've got a full score, and we were just actually ready to begin scheduling both a workshop and a concert. We're going to do the full, all 20 songs in a live concert that we were looking at doing in July of, the summer. And then we got hit with the pandemic. And so we regrouped after a while and thought about how we could maybe salvage that idea and present it in a smaller format in a digital platform.
John, what was your initial thought when you started taking on this project?
I really wanted to make sure we got it right. And as somebody that is from this community, moved away, I lived in New York for a while, I was on tour for a while. I moved back home in 2017. And I really felt like there were a lot of parallels. And I still feel like there are a lot of parallels between what was happening in Detroit in the late 40s, early 50s, and what's happening in our community right now. And the way that we're dealing with this struggle at the nexus of gentrification and redevelopment. And when you're really thinking about building out, like I personally hate the idea of a new Detroit. because Detroiters have been here, and my family's been here. We've all been here and been working and been trying to deal with having a lack of access to opportunity and having a lack of access to education and redevelopment, and still being one of the foundational communities in the world. Especially when you think about what we've contributed to the history of arts and of arts activism. I wanted to make sure, writing the book and helping to create these characters, that we stayed true to our community and really helped to tell a story that was both unique to Detroit, but it had themes that were archetypal and universal.
So, Kris, what was your first thought when you were approached to do this project?
It was really interesting is that Gary and I actually worked together on my first musical, Jim Crow's Tears. Gary wrote the book for it, and I wrote the lyrics and the music. And after I completed that project, I was kind of thinking, if I ever did another musical, if I ever, ventured into that world again, what would it be about? And I started researching more, and this is, almost a decade ago, started researching Black Bottom and got really kind of fascinated by the history of Black Bottom. So when this came up, it was just incredibly exciting to be able to actually put to use some of that research and some of that history in Detroit. And I think it's just a very, very, very timely piece, and kind of mirroring what John was saying. I think we're seeing a lot of the same themes that are starting to take place now in Detroit, and this whole idea of this like push and pull with the white and Black community. So I think it's just a really important reflection on what was, so that people understand that, Detroit's been here and will continue to be.
John, tell me a little bit about what the actual story is. How are we going to be taken through that history and experience it?
So one thing that the three of us talked about from the beginning is making sure that we were creating a piece and creating a story that, while it was true to life, was not re-traumatizing. There's a diversity of Black experiences, and we didn't want to see them get reduced down to archetypes, right? And so what you're going to do is, people that come see Hastings Street are going to follow the story of the Carson family. And it's one family who is established in the Black Bottom and Paradise Valley community. They have their own general store, and they want to try to see their business stay and grow and maintain. But all these things and all these forces are changing around them. In the middle of all that, the son of the family, Robert Jr., Bobby, comes home from World War II as a Tuskegee Airman, and is dealing with all the things that war vets have to deal with, that struggle of PTSD. And so we try to use his struggle and the family's struggle to mirror the parallel conversations that were happening in the city around what it means to take on responsibility, around what it means to come home in a world that's changing, an environment that's changing around you. And then also balanced with just the joy and the energy that was the jazz and blues that came out of the 40s and 50s, and using that from an oral sense to create a tapestry and world build, really, around what the city is and around what the family has to work through and try to overcome together.
The Detroit Jazz Festival is one of our most beloved events. Every Labor Day weekend, the glorious sounds coming from Hart Plaza. This year, of course, it's different. It's an all-virtual jazz festival, but it is being live streamed and broadcast starting this Friday, September 4th through September 7th. 8 to 10 hours of jazz music each day. You'll be able to see it on Detroit Public Television and more media partners. Well, Stephen Henderson spoke with Chris Collins, President and Artistic Director of the Detroit Jazz Festival, and JASMIN DeForrest, Rocket Mortgage Director of Community Sponsorships, on making this all happen.
So, Chris, ordinarily this time of year you would be one of the busiest men in Detroit. I get the sense that you are even busier this year, but all for a good cause, and that's to make sure that this wonderful festival that really defines our region is not interrupted by the pandemic. Tell us how that is going to work this year.
Well, we started many months ago when this began. We figured there were going to be a need for some changes, and we put a task force together, worked out many different scenarios for contingencies, and then worked with experts and watched the CDC data. And of course, we finally got to the point where we had to protect our patrons. So we went no audience. We moved to virtual, and then we were very concerned with the recent upticks in movements, and we decided it was best to postpone some of the out-of-town national guests. And we came up with the new format and the new lineup that everyone sees now, which has an amazing mix of artists and, of course, emphasizes our great world-class talent in Detroit, which makes it special. the final format being one where, our 2020 Detroit Jazz Festival presented by Rocket Mortgage again, which 5th year. Thank you guys. You came back with us and made it special even at this difficult time. It was very meaningful. And but our logo this year is safe, live, and free, which it has been for 41 years. But in this case, it is safe. It is also live. I insisted that we were not going to do this unless it could be live jazz in Detroit on exceptional stages with exceptional sound and video quality. We wanted to up the threshold of what that is. And we have an incredible team thanks to the fact that we're a no admission festival and we have this robust broadcast technology with Detroit Jazz Fest Live. We were in maybe a singular position to go ahead and make this happen. And so here we are, one of the last standing festivals. It's not only online at Facebook Live and Instagram for free. It's on our Detroit Jazz Fest Live app, but it's also on WDET radio. It's on portions of it on WRCJ and WEMU, Detroit Public Television, and all of it is on our Arts and Entertainment Channel 22 here in Detroit. So the fact is, whether you have Wi-Fi or not, you can hear it, you can see it, you can enjoy it for free. And we've maintained the mission, we've maintained the excellence, we've maintained the artistry. It's the real Detroit Jazz Festival, just in a new, interesting format.
This is the 5th year that Rocket Mortgage is the leading sponsor for our Jazz Festival. Tell us what's different for you guys this year.
Rocket Mortgage is proud to be the presenting sponsor of the Jazz Festival. It really puts our city on a national scale, and it shines just such a positive light on the city of Detroit. We really wanted to come back as a presenting sponsor because this is what not only Detroit needs, but the world needs: jazz and good music and just an opportunity to relax. It's great that Chris decided to do the pandemic pivot and to bring the Detroit Jazz Festival back again, but virtually. And he and his team are just working incredibly hard to make sure that it's an amazing experience for everyone.
So let's talk about the lineup.
Well, I'll tell you, we're very fortunate. We have some special moments. We are celebrating the 80th birthday of Pharoah Saunders. He's going to be with us, along with one of our Untitled series presented by Rocket Mortgage. Robert Glasper is with us this year. The great Renee Marie is with us. Steve Teray, the incredible trombonist and shell player. Joey Alexander, along with this incredible host of world-class Detroit talent. Robert Hurst presenting Black Currant Jam. Naima Schamberger and the Sister Strings Program. James Carter, Organ Trio. Rodney Whitaker, Septet. Walter White Big Band. Lulu Falls and Chris Johnson. And a very special piece is opening the festival. We're calling it Justice. It's a 4-movement piece. Each movement is presented by a different ensemble that's playing elsewhere at the festival, and they've composed an original work, and it deals with the amplification of all these issues. There'll be all sorts of little messaging and beauty, and it's a coming together of our community to make one joint statement. We'll use all the stages contiguously. It's going to be a very beautiful expression at the beginning of the festival. So there'll be those special moments and unexpected pleasures, visits by some of our national artists we had to postpone. They'll be visiting us throughout the festival, and a lot of surprises along the way.
So we can't crowd theaters to watch a summer blockbuster movie, but this spring, filmmakers from Michigan had the #1 movie in the country thanks to drive-in theaters. It's a horror flick called The Wretched, shot right here in Michigan. Our One Detroit editor, Chris Jordan, also moonlights as a movie critic, and he talked with directors Brett and Drew Pierce on their amazing success.
Dad, Mom's being weird.
I'm here with the Pierce brothers, Brett and Drew Pierce, the writers and directors of The Wretched, the #1 box office film in America for 5 weeks now, first film to do that since Black Panther. A very unusual set of circumstances led to this, with the big studio movies getting pulled and leaving this vacuum for indies to move into, but what do you think it is about The Wretched that's been resonating so much?
I think we kind of unintentionally made like the perfect drive-in movie because it's got a little bit of a throwback quality, and drive-ins historically, they were a big sort of hot spot for like creature features and old-fashioned sort of horror movies. And we just happen to have that kind of movie. It's a fun roller coaster sort of creepy witch movie. And I think that's just kind of a good escape for people to go see right now.
I think word of mouth has really helped us, because when people went to the drive-in, they had a really good time, and they just went and told other people, like, guess what? Drive-ins are open. There's this good time to be had right now when things are a little dark. You should go check it out.
Did you guys, or IFC Midnight, did you have this kind of strategy to recreate this experience going into this at all, or did it just kind of happen?
The initial plan was we would come out on video on demand, VOD, and like 10 or 12 theaters across the US on May 1st. But the pandemic hit, and we just assumed, you know, it's a bummer, but we won't be able to come out in theaters, but completely understandable. We want people to be safe. And we were just going to come out on video on demand. But then IFC said, guess what, guys? There's like these 10 or 12 drive-ins we want to try to put it into, and just see how it goes. And again, we were like, oh, that's cool. That's kind of a fun throwback, fun night for us to have. And probably just be for a week or two. And then it just, like, you know, week one hit and the movie did really well. And a lot of people packed the theaters that we had booked. And then the second week they're like, hey, let's put it in like 2021. They all got packed. And then they're like, hey, let's put it in 45. They all got packed, and it keeps growing. So
yeah, if you build it,
it's
they
all
will
unexpected.
come.
I saw you said in a recent interview that you kind of wanted to make the perfect summer horror movie with The Wretched. So what makes specifically like a summer horror movie to you?
Traverse City, Michigan, man. Up in Northport, Michigan, man.
We love a movie that just is in like and this is something we were excited about, is like an idyllic location where you almost want to go on vacation in that movie. And one of the things about horror movies in general is a lot of times you don't really want to spend your night there. It's like a creepy house that you would never want to even walk inside. And with this movie, we were like, let's set it in like a vacation town and make it feel like a vacation and let you settle in with the characters for a minute so you care when things sort of go the wrong way.
Yeah.
And we love the idea of like tying it to nature. So that's why we kind of decided to go with this like deer iconography symbol, and the idea that, you know, we went with a dark witch, but we like the idea that whenever she's nearby, she makes things wilt.
Yeah.
There's a close tie in all the myths of like witches to
nature. Yeah, almost like evil Mother Nature.
And setting it in Traverse City and shooting it in Traverse City, I know you're Michigan guys, you grew up here. How much did it really draw from like your lives?
At the end of the day, you always realize after you make a film that every piece of it is just a reflection of yourself. It's like therapy for the filmmaker. But yeah, I mean, that location, that's where we would go camping and tell scary stories and had lots of experiences.
Yeah, well, I mean, like
chased after girls, all of the things that Ben's going through. And we have this sort of amazingly positive, awesome dad. But things were always a little complicated because our parents are divorced, and we kind of know exactly what it felt like to live in those shoes. And it's a little complicated. And how do you balance both parents? And there's a lot of those elements. And I was a new dad right as we were writing this movie and planning to shoot it. And a lot of the horror dealing with like, what if my child was, something bad happened to them is what it is.
I was just taking it as he wanted to feed his children to witches. So I think that's another element of why people are like, the word of mouth is happening, is because there's more to this movie than just jump scares.
Listen to mommy. Do as I say, Dylan.
Hey, don't dip out on me like that. It freaks me out.
And that will do it for One Detroit. Thanks so much for joining me. Make sure you head to onedetroitpbs.org for more on the virtual Jazz Fest schedule this Labor Day weekend, and for all the arts and culture stories that we are working on. Have a great week. I'll see you next time on One Detroit. Take care.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.